Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Super Mario All-Stars Super Mario Bros. 1. Super Mario All-Stars was released in 1993 and was a compilation of Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, 3, and for North America, The Lost Levels, or in Japan, Super Mario Bros. USA. This was the earliest of the compilation style of carts from the early days of gaming that I remember actually checking out for myself, and quickly became one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. Later on, there was a re-release of this that also included Super Mario World. We're going to start off this collection of play-it-throughs with the original Super Mario Bros. 1, the very first game that I actually played as a kid. Now, I'm going to be completing all of the levels and all of the worlds in this run. I'm going to take a shortcut, though, in World 1-1, the very famous shortcut for the first pipe entry in Mario history here, and take us right to the end. I always liked that there was a different song in the underground for the little bonus areas in this version compared to the original Mario Brothers. The coolest thing about this compilation was just the slightly retouched up graphics, making them a little bit more colorful, adding some details that weren't there before, and overall are extremely well done for what they were. Of course, we're going to jump now into 1-2 and the first of the true underground stages, though I will take a little bit of a shortcut. I won't be using the warp in this level. When we make it over to this right side here, of course, we're going to break open a couple of these blocks, take out a Koopa Troopa, and then bust open the ceiling, doing a running jump upwards in order to run on the ceiling. The first time, of course, anyone ever discovered this had to be the coolest feeling, doing something that the game probably didn't intend for you to do overall, but was still a really cool overall thing. Well, we're going to go the intended route of going through this pipe and going to the flag. Of course, if you took that top portion, you're going to go to that warp zone, the first warp zone. I think many of us ever remember having levels 2, 3, and 4 located there. And of course, in this version, there is no minus world. If you kind of manipulate things a little bit and kind of go through the wall there, you can kind of get to that minus world on the original Super Mario Brothers, but that wasn't included in the All-Star version. Some really nice background effects in level 3 with the waterfalls going in the back as we work our way across the treetop-like platforms. Plenty of enemies, of course, are going to try to get into our way throughout the course of this game, but I'm going to be rushing over most of them. In the first castle level, we're going to avoid all these rotating flames, and when we get near the end of the stage, we have, of course, fireballs trying to shoot towards us where Bowser's located. Make a quick jump over Bowser, hitting the axe on the right side, causing the bridge to fall, and then we save the Toads. And, of course, we find out the princess is in another castle. One thing that I love about the All-Star versions, though, is the fact that you have all the amount of Toads for whatever world you're on. So in World 1, we save 1 Toad, but then in World 2, we end up saving 2 Toads that are located at the end of 2-4, and so on and so forth. Super Mario All-Stars would go on to sell over 1 million copies, becoming one of the top-selling Super Nintendo games, and in fact, Nintendo themselves would offer a mail-in offer to get the game for free if you mailed in a proof of purchase of a Super Nintendo along with a couple of dollars for shipping and handling. And then not long after that offer was when they actually made a pack-in bundle version of Super Mario All-Stars with a Super Nintendo, but that was the version that would actually include Super Mario World. Here we have the first underwater-themed level of Mario Brothers. Gonna do our best to kind of stay near the top for a lot of this level, kind of floating over a lot of the bloopers that are trying to get towards us, and some cheeps, dropping down just to kind of fit through a lot of these smaller little corridor-like areas. Overall, of course, a pretty simple water level, being the first one in Mario history here. Be sure not to get sucked down into the open abyss and gather a couple of coins if you really want to do so, though usually I just try to skip that because I usually end up messing up and not pressing swim fast enough and end up somehow falling off the screen. 2-3 is one of my favorite levels for sure, these bridge-themed stages where you're getting chased by a whole horde of cheeps that are popping out of the ground. I just absolutely love being able to try to rush as fast as possible, trying to stay ahead of them, and making those very nicely timed jumps. As far as straight platforming goes, these levels are always some of my favorites in this game. As we begin 2-4, we're going to start off by grabbing this fire flower located here, watching out for the lava and the like. The fire flower, I'm going to do my best to try to keep as much as possible, as it does, of course, really come in handy as far as taking out a lot of the enemies throughout the course of the game. Mostly the piranha plants. They can be a bit of a pain. In the Super Mario All-Stars version of the game, as we take out Bowser using the Fire Flower ability, after just a few hits we find out that he's actually a doppelganger. That's actually another enemy cloning himself or trying to dress up as Bowser, fake us out. Either way, once he's done, you can still have to hit the axe, but then we save 2 Toads and move on to World 3. In the original Mario Brothers, if you actually got enough speed and did a running jump, a lot of times you could jump over the piranha plants that were throughout the course of the game, even if they were fully extended out of the pipe. However, in this version, they changed it so that you're unable to do that kind of stuff, so you still have to be a bit careful, but if you have the fire flower, you can actually fire this in mid-jump, and usually end up taking out one of those plants before you end up landing on the pipe itself. 3-1 also introduced us to the infinite lives trick that we were able to use on those Koopa Troopas at the end of the level. By timing a nice jump on them with their shell, you can kind of keep jumping on them over and over again, racking up an infinite amount of lives. One of the other things I do like in this version is not only does the night sky look really cool with like the little flashes of stars and the like in the background with the different colors, you also have like snow-themed levels with all the ground and the plants, trees in the background being covered in snow, which ends up looking really cool overall. (3-3 is another one of the treetop themed levels, plenty of the conveyor belt like platforms scattered throughout the course of it, and plenty of opportunity to make some pretty cool jumps running across the tree tops and watching out for, of course, falling down into the massive pit below. But overall, pretty fun level to kind of jump your way through. As we begin 3-4, we have a series of rotating fires to kind of meet us, and then we have these where you can kind of jump between a couple of them, as you have fires on the top and bottom portion. When you make it to this section here, fireballs start flying from the right side, along with some jumping lava, but when we make it to Bowser, just going to blast him, of course, with a bunch of fireballs. He'll drop, and we have saved 3 Toads this time around. Overall, probably the 3rd most played stage in the original Mario Brothers, and that is 4-1, as of course if you take the warp in 1-2, most people are going to go to World 4, where we get introduced to Lakitu, who is of course trying to throw those spinies down at us. We're going to keep running to keep ahead of them, so those spinies are unable to even appear on the screen, and once we make it to the far end, of course he'll run away from us and we can hit the flag. (4-2 is another underground-themed level that also has the ability to get to a warp that will take you right to World 8, which we, of course, won't be doing here in this run. There's some really weird, cool things you can do with the warp. As long as you're able to hit the block, which is located in the left of that set of 3, which will cause the beanstalk to appear, you can actually manipulate the game, at least in the original Mario Brothers, not in this version, but the original, and actually go through a pipe and that will instantly warp you to wherever the beanstalk was going to take you, which is kind of cool. A lot of speedrunners have used glitches like that to help them beat the game in just a matter of moments. Here I make a nicely timed jump to the pipe above, watching out for the piranha plant, then head through this pipe and head on to World 4-3. 4-3 is another treetop base level, but instead of treetops, we have giant mushroom tops. The same premise of the level though begins, but I really do like the color scheme overall with the orange and red mushrooms, along with the very happy clouds in the background. Pretty short level though for the most part, and we're entering into the first maze-like level of the game. The way the mazes work is there are a few areas where you have to go a certain path. Like right here, we're going to go across the very top portion of the stage, watching out for rotating fires. After that, though, we're going to head on through, going right between these platforms, dropping all the way to the very bottom, then running across the bottom, making sure that we don't run into another rotating flame. And if you start seeing fire shooting from the right, you know you went the right way. Take out Bowser, hit the axe, and 4 more toads have been saved. "5-1 is another snow-themed level here, and it's a nice daytime-themed snow level. So some cool snow effects on the bottom, colorful mountains or trees or whatever they're supposed to be located on in the background. We also have some bullet bill cannon firing things to deal with as well throughout this stage, so be careful of them while trying to manipulate and platform our way through this. "5-2 is pretty much more of the same. You have more bullet bills as well as the Koopa Troopas, but then you also have Hammer Bros to deal with. If you have the Fire Flower to help you out, you can easily take out a majority of the Hammer Brothers using that Fire Flower, but if you don't, you have to really kind of time your maneuvers right through them, so you're able to either get across underneath, or you end up going past them when they end up jumping up into the air, which ends up being very difficult to do so. This is a good level, though, to practice your movements against the Hammer Brothers, because of course later levels in the game have quite a lot of them to deal with, so this is a good stage to kind of get your bearings as far as they are concerned, timing your movements correctly. More tree-topped themed fun during this level, except we have bullet bills rushing over from the far right side. This level is very similar to the very first of the tree levels that we dealt with in 1-3, just with a barrage of bullet bills. It's overall a relatively short level, just like a lot of the treetop themed stages are, and then we're entering into the next castle. Unfortunately, though, we ended up getting hit, so we have to be careful here and grab this mushroom from this rotating fire as the level begins. This level is identical to one we did already. As far as castles are concerned, there are just more enemies, mostly more rotating flames to deal with. Carefully manipulate your way through the elevators during this part here, and as you make it over to the right, lots of fireballs coming your way, and we have to make a jump over Bowser instead of being able to take him out, since unfortunately we don't have Fire Flower ability at the moment. Down to the final 3 worlds as we enter into 6-1, another one of the night-themed levels. Making a nice timed jump here, I'm able to take out the Lakitu before he's able to really get this level going, so now I can just kind of maneuver my way through without having to really worry too much about him. A lot of these staircase-like platforms can be a little bit more troublesome when you're dealing with Spinies being dropped, but if you take out Lakitu like I did, really easy overall stage. 6-2 is filled to the brim with piranha plants. There's a ton of pipes in this level, all of which end up having piranha plants coming out of them. So you really want to take your time and make sure that you don't try to jump over them unless you're sure you're able to clear them. Like I said, the original Mario Brothers, a lot of these pipes you can just clear by doing a nice time running jump, but that's not the case in this version. So if you don't have the fire flower, you have to be a little bit more cautious during this area. While we see the bullet bill on the icon for the stage, we don't have to deal with a lot of them until about halfway through the level is when the bullet bill starts showing up. For the most part though, just a lot of platforming with very small girders and the like that you'll have to jump on. Once you make it about halfway, that's when the bullet bills end up showing up, making things a little bit more difficult, but still, the smaller platforms are really not too much more of a hassle to have to platform on. 6-4, as we enter in, you have a bunch of rotating fires. I'm going to stop here in order to grab this fire flower and then time it so that I'm able to get past the next set of rotating fires on the right side. Just slowly work your way through this area, making sure that you time it so you're able to kind of get past all the fires. As long as you take your time, though, it's a pretty simple thing to do. And before too long, after a couple of dodging fireballs, we take out another Bowser, this time disguised as a blooper, and we're moving on to 7. Really nice effects of snow on the castle as we begin 7-1. Lots of bullet bills and cannons during the course of 7-1, so you also have to deal with a bunch of Hammer Brothers, making this a relatively difficult stage, at least as far as this game is concerned. Thankfully, I have the fire flower, so that greatly ends up increasing my ability to take out a majority of the Hammer Brothers during this level. Seven 2 is the other one of the underwater-based levels, and it's very similar to the one before. Thankfully, we have a fire flower, and you can fire fireballs underneath the water, and this will allow us to take out a lot of the cheeps and the bloopers as we try to swim our way through this level. This is another one of the levels in this version. It does a nice little job of kind of setting the mood of the stage with the coral in the background and the nice little underwater effect that you get to see. The stage is, of course, pretty straightforward as far as what we're dealing with. Thankfully, that fire flower really does help us take out a lot of the bloopers as we reach the pipe at the end. Seven 3 is another one of my favorite levels in the game because once again it's a bridge-themed stage with a lot of the cheeps running after us, flying up from the bottom, flying overhead. As long as you time some nicely done jumps, you can avoid most of them, being able to just kind of keep going along all the pieces of the bridge. Like I said, easily one of my favorite types of levels in this one. Seven 4 is another one of the maze-themed castles. Just like the last one, we have to do a certain path. So we start off by dropping down here and running underneath. Then we're going to go through the middle part here, and then finally the top portion. That's the first section. When you beat that, we're going to take the top portion here, drop down, then go through the middle platforms, and then jump up to the very top to finish up the second section, taking us right to the Bowser fight. Thankfully, this version also is cool that it does a little chime effect if you've picked the right direction. So you already know if you've picked the wrong one, you'll hear like a negative sound effect. So that way you at least know if you're picking the right one, so you can do process of elimination a lot easier than, of course, the original version of the game on NES. And with that group of toads saved, now we're moving on to the 8th and final world of the game. Once again, there's a lot of piranha plants throughout this level that unfortunately we won't be able to jump over. We'll have to fire at the plants using the fireballs. You also have a couple of small little platforms that you have to do some jumps on. Right here, if you want to, you can kind of hit those blocks in order to find items if you want to. You can get a star from that set of blocks, but we're just going to keep on rushing through. Here we make a first big leap over a relatively large gap, but that's something we'll see a couple of times during the course of this level. As we make it on a little bit farther, we have another jump like that, but with a platform with 2 spots in the middle. And then finally, one last one with that single platform in the middle, which I'm sure gave some people a headache way back in the day. As 8-2 begins, we have a Lakitu to deal with at the very beginning, along with these Koopa Troopas working their way downwards, avoiding them and taking out him. We're going to use this spring to free up this extra life and then break open another block so the extra life falls through. If you're small, of course, you can just follow the extra life all the way to the right there and grab it, so that you always at least keep getting that 1 extra life at the beginning of each time you do this level, so you don't end up running out of lives. Here, I always take it usually slow on these platforms, just kind of get a little bit farther on the left one and then do a running jump over to the right over the gap. After a few more series of bullet bill-like cannons, we make it to the last part of the stage and move on to 8-3, which of course is a gauntlet of Hammer Brothers. This is a good level, once again, to have the Fire Flower ability, so that you're going to be able to take out most of these Hammer Brothers easily, but if you don't have it, it's a pretty difficult level to get through. It starts off pretty simple, with just Hammer Brothers with these multiple layers of platforms for them to kind of get on so that you can get past, but then you have to deal with a series of the Hammer Brothers in a row that are on the actual ground level along with you. After getting past them, hitting the flag, we're moving on to the 8th and final castle of Super Mario Bros. 1. The 8th castle of the game is once again a little bit of a maze, and I love the cool effect of having like lightning going on throughout the windows in the background to kind of signify this is a more important castle-themed stage. As we begin, we're going to start heading over to the right, watching out for a few pipes before entering into the pipe located here. Once we pop out of it, continue moving over to the right. Watch out for a couple of beetle enemies and a few Koopa Troopas. Once you make it past this set of lava, keep jumping in the air until you hit this invisible block, making this appear so that we can jump up to this pipe and go inside. On the next section here, you'll have Cheep Cheeps that start flying up from the bottom, which is a little bit annoying, but once you get past the first big jump over lava, head on down and you're into an underwater-themed area of this part. Pretty simple area, but you have to move quickly along a lot of the rotating flames, and there's a couple of bloopers waiting for you as well during this section. Once you get past them and exit the pipe, there's a Hammer Brother waiting for you as soon as you kind of get out of this pipe, so be very careful of him. Take him out with a Fire Flower if you can, and then it's the final Bowser of the game. Jump over him or take him out with fire, hit the axe, and enjoy the brief ending to Super Mario Bros. 1 on Super Mario All-Stars. So there you guys have it, Super Mario Bros. 1, the All-Stars version of the game. But with that, guys, it's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.